like baritone or a bass.
You used to be a
English full of
bass, a baritone?
surprises.
Like not a tenor, obviously, but more like a baritone.
Huh.
Can you give me a sound? What does that sound like?
Like me, like a
Like
deep voice, but not very deep. Like what is it? Samuel Jackson, not Samuel Jackson level.
This guy's taking
More
this
like John
opera shit
Travolta.
seriously.
John Travolta.
John Travolta, like in Greece, like Greece,
Yeah,
John Travolta.
Yeah.
No, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Good morning, everyone. It is Friday, February 13th, Friday the 13th, episode 85 of the Three Body Problem with my friends Costin Rayu out in Bucharest, Romania. Juanito is in Washington, D.C. We start this show off with, I don't know where to start. We start this show off with, I don't know, talk some drone talk.
Drone talk.
Juanito, you are Mr. CNN these days. Maybe we should start there. What is up with all the CNN appearances? I was minding my own business watching the Knicks game the other night, and someone called me on the phone to say, on the phone, is that Juanito on CNN? So I switched over, and then it was like, I saw you had a nice blue suit. It wasn't the tan Obama suit, so you were upgrading your wardrobe. What's going on there? You're going to become a correspondent there or something?
I mean, not intentionally, but you know how these PR things go, right? Like somebody just calls saying, "Hey, is somebody available for whatever?" and nobody is, and I'm like, yeah, sure. I live 5 minutes away from this shit. Like I can just show up this one time, and then like 5 appearances later, I'm now like having to reshuffle my entire life, just being like, okay, so
wardrobe the whole thing. What are you guys talking about? Like, is there like a cyber thing, or are you just going to be one of the talking heads on there talking about everything?
Well, so I don't let me make it sound like it's anything more established or long running than it is. For the time being, yeah, I mean, like just kind of bringing me in for like anything that's like hacking and cyber and AI. But for the most part, like where this all started is with this like super unfortunate like Nancy Guthrie kidnapping case, because there was like the Bitcoin angle and then the data recovery angle with Google sort of pulling stuff from the Nest cameras. And I don't want to like talk shit. It's cool to have the opportunity. It's good to be able to like kind of disambiguate some of these things, and like you're sitting there with like Andrew McCabe and like people who like know what they're talking about for the FBI side of it and whatever. So I'd rather kind of like be there and say things that I think make sense. At the same time, the format of like primetime news is just insanely unforgiving. Like you're 90 seconds, if you're lucky, in the middle of what's supposed to be a conversation, but in reality is like, get your talking points out there, sharp and quick, right? And that's it. And like get off the podium.
You're filling time in between
right?
ads, like, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's just high pressure. It's like a lot of prep for like a very condensed period of time. And like after this podcast of like knowing I have 2 to 3 hours to talk shit about a subject, having to walk in there and do 90 seconds, clean, sanitized to the point, understandable to a general audience is like a whole different thing. Yeah.
Well, if you do become CNN and start giving me 90-second sound bites, we're gonna have problems. I think it's pretty cool.
Up, very political.
I think it's pretty cool, and I think from my perspective, it actually put someone on CNN that knows what they're talking about, because 90% of the time I don't want to shit on the show or the TV thing, but a lot of the times, like you said, a PR person connected someone and then you have a talking head there and you're just like and in cybersecurity especially, it's always problematic. How are you, Costin? What's going on out in your world?
Yeah, I mean, good. We started with Eminem, so it has to be a great day.
People don't understand this. I jump on this call. I'm always a little late because, trying to prepare. And
you're always late.
And I'm always late. I'm always late. So and I show up, and these two are watching the like Eminem video with Dido from like the fucking 90s, like the early was it like late 90s?
Oh, Jesus.
No context, just rapping through it together. I don't know.
1998, 1999.
Oh my God.
Costin was setting up his camera and he was singing opera, and that's why the whole baritone conversation comes in. We were vibing out on an Eminem YouTube video and trying to figure out pop culture music.
That Marshall Mathers LP is the first album I ever bought.
Oh, wow.
Like the first CD I ever bought.
Wow.
Such a
Just-
millennial. It's just like
I bought something else.
But first,
Shit's a vibe.
I don't think you guys even know what it is, but do you know what Mark O is?
No.
Like some techno dance music from the 90s, Mark O.
Wow. No.
Peers don't like that. I think that was the first CD I bought.
you guys are like, you see,
European techno.
European.
It's a vibe.
CD.
Man.
And for me, it was a 45. I was born in 1971. So my first music purchase was a 45, which gave you a single on one side and what's called a B side on the other side. And it was Boy George's
Presley.
Karma Chameleon.
Wow.
Boy George. Wow.
Karma Chameleon,
only-
one of the great songs.
The only 45 I've ever owned was the DEF CON badge from like 2016 or something. Remember
That's
when we
when
were
you
all
learned
walking
what a
around with the
45
giant
was.
vinyls? Yeah, man. What a
Doesn't
world.
Alright, let's
Boy
get to the
George
show.
also have the Hare Krishna, the Hare Krishna song as well?
Good.
I think it's better than the Karma Chameleon one.
Let's
Guys,
get to the
right.
show. We got a
What
bunch of
is
stuff to
happening?
get to.
What
But
is
I want to start
happening?
with drones in El Paso, Texas. The FAA briefly shut down the airspace over El Paso, Texas on Tuesday with their initial announcement that this was going to be for 10 days. Like suddenly airspace shut down for 10 days and there was all kinds of rumors and talks about drones circulating. The official report came out that there was some Mexican cartel drone that had to be shut down, and then there was a bunch of confusion over whether it was an actual cartel drone or the US government was testing anti-drone defenses, blah, blah. I bring all of this up because it fits into the context of what we've been talking about in the past along drones becoming a part of warfare. Drones and Mexican cartels has always been in our consciousness here. Juanito, do we know for sure what happened here?
I don't know anything. Like, I don't know anything for sure. This is starting to sound
I mean,
more
has
like,
there been a official documented, this is what we did and this is what happened?
not as far as I know, but the discussion is kind of bizarre, right? Like, why would you shut down for 10 days over drones being around? Then there's like, what are they talking about? Like the apparently there was a suggestion that we were going to use some kind of like new high energy anti-drone weapon, which sounds fascinating. I mean, I'd love to kind of see some pew pew Star Wars shit we've been sitting on, but the whole thing just seems super odd. Why 10 days? Well, like, why? I don't get it.
And then
like,
reopened it in a couple of hours.
well, also, can we circle back on like the Mexican cartels have like drones, and what are they doing near airports? Like, what's going on, you guys?
El Paso is a border town. I live in a border state as well here in Arizona, and it's always been in our local news and in our consciousness around dropping drugs across the border, throwing things into prisons. That kind of the conversation around drones used to be mostly, around airports, and it's causing problems for commercial flights. And on the other side, like criminal activity and cartel. When you're in a border state, that's what pops up all the time. In this case here, I don't know, it was originally a 10-day closure over the airspace of El Paso, which is like not even a border state, that's a border town. And, initially they said Mexican cartel drones breach U.S. airspace and they took action to disable the drones. Well, of course, if you shut down the airspace, you need to shut down the airspace for that. But then the announcement that it was going to be for 10 days, and then it just seems like there's something happened and nobody knows for sure, and we're not getting a clear communication from officials. Is that fair?
Well, also, can we say that like clearly this means there was like a fuck up? Not necessarily on the part of officials, but even on the part of the cartels, right? Like if your whole point is that you're using drones to smuggle drugs, then if you got noticed to the point where you shut down an entire fucking airport, someone fucked up, right? Like that's the opposite of covert, right? I don't know. If there's anything exciting about this story is the notion that we have some kind of high energy anti-drone laser shit. Right, like if there's anything America can still take pride in is like an overdeveloped military muscle that's just itching to get used,
Showcase
like just
itself.
fucking dying to use it. Like,
So you
dying.
mentioned pew pew. Do you think it's real?
The laser thing?
The laser thing?
I mean, I would be disappointed if we don't have some kind of cool fucking anti-drone laser thing. Though the notion that we would use it domestically, when it would use it, how we use it, etc. But like, yeah, I'd be kind of I for the amount of money that we spend in our like
Yeah, you hope they
military
have
and
it.
defense contracting, the idea that like what we're gonna put nets, like the fuck is this, right? Like, absolutely not. Like, tell me we have some kind of laser.
Costin, does this story register for you at all? I mean, you're in Europe. This notion of drone warfare is a big subject for you as well.
Well,
What
you
do
know
you?
me. I'm on the X-Files side of things. Like I want to believe those kind of things. So in my circles, there's a video of something flying, like something really huge. It's like allegedly a video from El Paso, from somewhere like between the hills. And it's like a huge object flying miles away. It's not a drone, obviously. This is the size of what, like a big airplane or maybe a balloon, but it has like a shape that is flat, not necessarily like a round or elongated shape. And I mean, sure. What seems suspicious in this story is the 10 days. Like, why do you shut down the airspace for 10 days?
Which suggests that the whole shooting lasers and testing some sort of shooting of lasers made, at least that resonated with me when you saw the 10-day shutdown warning. It was like, okay, so they're doing some kind of activity around drones. And listen, you should be. I mean, it was super disruptive. It happened with no notice and people got things. But I mean, your government should be testing anti-drone defenses, right, Kostin? Isn't this what Kaspersky was building? What was the
They
Kaspersky drone
should. I
thing?
mean, not like in
Anti-drone thing.
Romania when they just watch them with concern. Like,
Yeah.
oh, that's a
With
new
grave
Russian drone
concern.
entered our airspace, and our pilots have followed it with grave concern, and finally disappeared off the radar. But we don't know where, if it fell or if it, I don't know, vaporized or teleported itself to El Paso. We don't know. So, I mean, sure, we want a government, whatever, the military, the army to shut it down. If it's an unidentified drone, nobody knows who runs it, like, you want it shut down, sure.
What was the Kaspersky anti-drone technology about? Do you know? Do we
I
know?
don't know. Like, honestly, I had nothing to do with that thing. It always, it was like it registered as something parallel to me because I thought there's absolutely no connection between antivirus solution protections defense and anti-drone technology, at least in my mind. I thought there's like no connection. Also,
They
I
were ahead
thought
of their time.
it's not feasible. I mean, why? Because the technology to take over drones means like hacking into the drone communication with 0 days, taking over and things like that. And I was thinking to develop this technology for every new model, like Chinese drone model that appears, and everyone runs like a different firmware on different channels. You would need different 0 days, and to find these 0 days, it will cost too much,
You
and you
can't
won't be
scale
able
that,
to
yeah.
support everything. So what the guys who want to avoid your anti-drone technology will just buy the newest dirt cheap Chinese drone and just fly that, and your device won't be able to stop it because it doesn't have a 0 day for that firmware. But I mean, nowadays, I don't know, lasers, jamming, things like that may be options, but I'm still not super optimistic about how efficient these systems are. I mean, just if you look at Ukraine, what is Ukraine using against drones? Either they're flying other drones to bring them down, or they're shooting them down the Shaheds with jets,
With traditional
airplanes and
air
traditional,
power.
with their rail guns. So I don't know about efficiency again. I would be very curious to hear if these lasers are legit. I know Israel has been developing a system that uses a high power laser, which costs like $10 per shot, something like that, which is nothing compared to these interceptor missiles, which are millions per missile. So like at $10, that's nothing. Yeah.
You have to imagine there's a lot of investment going into anti-drone technology with how the Ukraine-Russia war is shaped out, right? I mean, that's maybe
I still
driving.
think
Ask
that
Miko. We need to
fighting
ask
drones
Miko
with
Hippel.
drones is the most effective way. Like, just fly another drone into the other drone and bring it down.
Yeah, but then you're just playing war fighting in the sky. Like, it's like, how is that? It gets nervous when it comes closer to home, and it seems like it's just getting closer and closer to home, and this drone warfare is coming closer to home, and then there'll be an incident at some point.
I still want to believe, hoping that some of these drones are not like classic technology. They're like exotic propulsion mechanisms, or maybe not like
UFOs.
from this world. Rumors of Chinese playing their own recovered technologies.
Can we get like one of those Stream Deck like sound thingies with like the X-Files whistle? Yeah. Just like in the background every time Coastin talks about that.
I was actually planning to have a big
by all means.
I was planning to have a "This is CNN" button every time you came on today.
No, please no.
I want to believe poster. Like I heard, by the way, the X-Files are getting a reboot. Oh, let's see.
What?
Notepad plus. Juanito, you got a last closing thought on the drone thing? You were itching to get into Costin's answer there for a second.
Well, I was actually just gonna go at the fact that like the thing about this is how mundane it is, right? Like we want to think about like some pretty cool drone tech and drone warfare being some kind of like ultra high tech thing, but like what makes it so fortuitous for warfare is how ubiquitous it is and how cheap it is, and how like these are, you know, the whole drone is a bullet, a munition as far as like costs go, right? You just think of it as like a disposable thing. And yeah, of course you want to bake more compute into it, and I'm sure you could have better like maneuvering and flight and longer battery life and whatever. But the more we think about these being high performing devices, the less they are the cheap ubiquitous solution that you can just kind of toss out and you don't mind losing, right? So it's you know,
even the original uses for drone was always this cheap thing that you put a very expensive camera on. It was an expensive flying camera, right? It wasn't the same point you're making. Yeah. Notepad++ was a dominant story on our episode last week. If we put the Epstein stuff aside, Costin, there's some new developments. Can you like bring us up to date on what's new as it relates to this supply chain attack?
Yeah, so this week we got a few new IOCs. Remember when there were discussion, there's no IOCs from the incident response at Hostinger, which was the previous hosting company where Notepad++ had their update servers. Now we got a number of IOCs from the incident response at Hostinger. There's a bunch of hashes, a number of IP addresses. Some of them are VPNs. I think some of them are Proton VPN, if I remember correctly. And I've been checking them against my lists to see what those are. I think one of them was also a known network attacker. The hashes are not on VirusTotal, unfortunately, so there's a bunch of 3 or 4 hashes in there which are allegedly related to this tool called Suo5.
Suo5?
Suo5. I'm probably pronouncing it the wrong way. It should be like
SU05 or SU05?
Suo or Suo5. Suo5. Probably it's some of our Chinese listeners will tell us how to properly pronounce it. Suo5.
I hope so.
I'm sure it's wrong. And this is some kind of FRP-like tool, fast reverse proxy tool, which is very, very popular with red teamers. Also, some APT groups like these things because they can just set them up on a server and use them to tunnel back into that infrastructure with minimal alerts. Typically, it's our high performance, very stable Suo5 is written in Golang and is developed by a Chinese guy who goes by the alias Zima1. He's got like a bunch of tools, maybe 20 or more tools on GitHub, all of them pen testing tools, the kind of tools that you expect pen testers to use. So he's obviously into those kind of things, and Suo5 is one of them. I put all these hashes to tracking by the project. My project is now on VT. So hopefully they'll show up, but unfortunately I didn't see anything about that kernel exploit that we discussed the last time. Hostinger, they were kind of hinting there was some kind of a kernel exploit being used, and they patched it in September, which kind of cut the attackers out. Unfortunately, no hashes for that kernel exploit
The Rapid
or
7 blog
anything.
didn't mention this either, right?
No, we didn't get any other mentions of this before, and it kind of makes sense in my opinion, because this would be like the server-side tools that Rapid7 and the others didn't get to analyze. Only the company who did incident response, or maybe Hostinger themselves, would have access to those or see them. But by the way, at the same time, our good friend Csongor Tamás, I hope I pronounced it that correctly,
I'm glad
published.
you did.
He published their analysis on the Ukatemi blog. Ukatemi has a very interesting system, by the way, which is called Karibu, that
This is
allows
Mr.
you to hunt.
Boldy's. Mr. Boldy is associated
Boldy's former
with this, right?
company, correct?
Okay.
Mr. Boldy. Shoutouts to our friend Boldy Sar Benchat, who left Ukatemi, I think, and now the company is still kicking, and Chongor published their analysis with the Karibu system.
Hold on, back up.
What does
the Karibu system do?
Karibu system is a kind of a big malware collection with some kind of code hunting features. So if you have a sample to start with, or a hash, you can use their technology to find similar samples in their collection, which, if I remember correctly, is a couple of petabytes in size. They're selling this as a kind of on-premise solution with something like 20 servers that you can buy, deploy on your premise, and poof, you have like 5 petabytes of malware samples and the ability to hunt through these samples almost in real time. So the queries are very fast. And he used this to find similar samples, similar additional Lotus Blossom samples to those found by Kaspersky in their blog post, and the ones mentioned by Rapid7 initially.
Juanito, have you guys been tracking this closely at Sentinel Labs?
I mean, we've been working on, samples and detections and stuff like that, but not sort of jumping over tables to like beat folks to any of this. It's more about just making sure that we're like on top of it.
What is there left to learn about this incident? What is the outstanding questions?
We still want to know how Hostinger got owned in the first place. Was it a vulnerability in the Notepad++ update mechanism, their PHP scripts, maybe something like that? Or was it something else, like they managed to get an account on the same box and then use this kernel EOP they kind of hint towards to jump and from there get access to the Notepad++ infrastructure? It kind of seems to point to the second option of another account on the same box getting compromised and them using this kernel exploit. But it would be nice to know how, because, they say they didn't find any similar activity on any other host, but it kind of, in my opinion, raises a bigger question, which is where is Lotus Blossom doing this as well? Are they doing this kind of attacks anywhere else on other hosting providers? If it's an issue, let's say, of a vulnerability that was closed in June, July, officially, and people didn't patch their boxes because it requires a kernel update, so that means a reboot. And if they reboot it in September, there's still a window. Maybe some of them didn't even reboot by now. Like sometimes people just don't reboot their hosting platforms because it means disruption to their customers. And kernel vulnerabilities in Linux are always like a big issue. Unfortunately, there are some solutions, like for instance, Ubuntu has these live patches, which allows them to patch the kernel on the fly without the need to reboot, which is nice. But unfortunately, other operating systems, depending on whatever you have on your hosting platform, may not have this feature. So that means the moment then a kernel exploit is in the wild or somebody gets their hand, they can use it for months everywhere, because people simply don't patch kernels and don't reboot.
do we have no visibility in who the actual targeted people were, right? I mean, we don't know what
Not yet.
Lotus Blossom was after.
Like I said, I think the best information came from the Kaspersky blog, which was talking about even financial organizations in El Salvador. That seems strange to me, but also a bunch of other organizations through Asia. I think the most recent discussions are, including from Notepad++, they were saying that we have no way of knowing who got hit, although I think that Hostinger was saying there was still a very limited number of victims who got the further stages. So the whole targeting was very precise. And of course, it would be nice to know how the targeting happened, like how did they exactly, how did they know how to select whom to target, right? And what this new IOC's file says is that the access to these attacker control share hosting accounts, they were observed from multiple geographical locations. Obviously VPNs were used, but it doesn't talk unfortunately much about the victims locations, which you would expect them to have some victim information as well.
Do you think we're talking about 10 victims, 100 victims, 1,000 victims? When you say it's precise and narrowed, how
I think
how tiny you
100,
think? Okay.
probably in the range of 100 or so. Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully, the thing with these stories is it was a big story last week. This week we are kind of like trying to fray the edges, and then next week it disappears and it's something new. And this is like life in the cybersecurity trenches, right?
Yes, and then maybe like 5 months later, somebody comes up with an addendum
new
or
expensive
new
report,
information.
yeah.
The U.S. government got owned, or the Mexican government got owned, and this exposed whatever new secret project, and it's a big
2
disaster.
drones were hacked by Notepad++.
Why
Or-
are drones running Notepad++?
Somebody in the White House or close to the president got their communications intercepted, and there's a whistleblower, and all that got hacked by Lotus Blossom.
Typical.
Notepad++ exists because Notepad was just a simplistic thing, right? But now we have Notepad powering AI with AI capabilities that Microsoft
Notepad
previously
AI.
added. And now we have, this week was Patch Tuesday. Microsoft shipped, I believe, six of their vulnerabilities patch were marked as already exploited, which we call 0-day. And that includes a Notepad RCE remote code execution when opening markdown content. Now, this was part of like this addition when they dumped AI into Notepad. And now it's remotely exploitable. Carsten, did you get a look at all 6 of these patches? All of them marked as exploited. Every month this happens, I say the same thing. We just know that somebody was hacked and Microsoft says the patch and we just move on with our lives. Do we know anything different here?
Not, unfortunately, no. The only thing we know is this, that there's like a bunch of different CVEs that got fixed in totally like different places. So for instance, CV 2026-21510 is a Windows shell, which just allows the attackers to bypass a smart screen security warning. So that's maybe not too serious. It kind of maybe makes spam or phishing attacks, make them a bit easier. On the other hand, there's others like CV 2026-21513, which is a MS HTML framework that still exists in Windows, although Microsoft moved to Chromium Edge years ago. This framework still exists in many like components like Windows Shell, for instance, or third-party apps. And
that used to be an Internet Explorer thing, right? This MS HTML was unique to Internet Explorer. Well, at least it used to be problem on IE back in the days.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's hard. What's the point of like migrating off of technologies if you never get rid of the old one? Like that's really the thing with Microsoft. One of the many things about how Microsoft does things that just like defeats the purpose is like because of this insistence on like always having legacy support. You just never actually get rid of the shitty thing that you were supposed to be replacing. So yes, now we, in theory, have something better powering most of the thing that you use, but the old carcass of the other shitty thing is still around.
Embedded
right?
everywhere, yeah.
Yeah. I love that for them. I
It's good
mean,
to see the Google Threat Intelligence Group continues to push, continues to report things to Microsoft. So this month we see again mentions of Google's Threat Intelligence Group reporting things. Of course, yeah, we're grateful for all that, but it would also be interesting to know exactly who was exploiting them, which APT
Yeah.
group or finger, like,
Is it
the
APT? Is
details.
it just ransomware? Is it just like adware people doing bypasses of stuff? Like what the hell is going on? Like we get 6 days and then they move on to next month and nobody says anything and we just kind of like this is this world we're flapping around in. I don't understand. I don't understand how Windows corporate Windows users who standardize on that company's platform accept this as a normal part of business. Juanito, why aren't we? I mean, why am I the only one angry about the fact that Microsoft says, listen, someone got into your house and there was a broken window somewhere. Go fix
Yeah.
the window and
Fix the lock.
be gone.
Here's
Yeah.
a new lock.
Yeah. Here's a new
I
lock. We don't know if they're still
thief-
sitting in your bedroom somewhere.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I think when you're in these like enterprise support cycles, I suppose that you get used to just accepting whatever bullshit somebody sends your way, because it's indefensible, right? Like, there's no way that this is like an okay response. But I also wonder to what extent them sneaking it under the radar this way is a way to keep from having that response in the first place, right? Like, you're just making it seem like it's all just a little bit of technical jargon, some whatever thing that if you're not paying attention, then not a big fucking deal, and move on. And that in effect, like, there is a reason why you kind of put it this way. It's because you don't want it to be a story. You don't want it to like kick up any kind of dust, and you could just pretend that it's not a big deal. And if you don't look, let's put it from a different angle, right? Like, doing threat intel and writing the stories and trying to get news coverage. It's really hard to get coverage on an O day by itself, right? Like, you can basically say like, oh, this really, really matters because this thing is so prevalent and this thing is so important and the exploit is so bad and it enables so many terrible things and it's being used by so many people. So the impact is huge. Therefore, you must care about this exploit. But most journalists, I imagine, who hear about here's another LPE in Windows, here's another blah, 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 will just be like, so what the fuck do you want me to write? Like, why is this a story? And if you think about it in that light, what Microsoft is doing is essentially keeping the oxygen out of the room so that there is no story. And somebody else has to kind of butt in with some oxygen to say, hey,
Why
no,
aren't
this is
customers
something you should
demanding
cover.
oxygen? This is my ask though. It's like if I'm a Windows shop and I've standardized on all of Microsoft's technologies and this has become a monthly thing, and I care about whether I want to do threat hunting in my network to see if anyone has been living in there because this is a standard thing that always happens. Like, why am I not agitating for Microsoft to fix this and at least give me some sort of threat hunting? Or am I already buying it through some enterprise E5 thing that I'm getting some sort of advanced protection on?
I mean,
I don't understand why there's no.
Theoretically, you're super bought into Microsoft. I'm sure you're getting some kind of like Sentinel defense and blah, blah, and, maybe some reporting and maybe some detection stuff. But I also just think that Microsoft doesn't seem to really give a flying fuck about its customers. And to be fair, if you look at Microsoft's priorities, right? Like, I love that you're skipping past the fact that like Notepad had AI added to it that nobody asked for it, and that made it vulnerable in a way that it never needed to be. And like, it's such an obvious misunderstanding of what any customer could possibly ever have wanted with this product, right? Like, you open Notepad to be able to put down some notes real quick. That is literally the entire purpose of Notepad. You're not opening it because it's your like de facto tool for writing reports. You're not, you didn't need the fucking internet connection to use Notepad. Like, Notepad had, the only use was that. So some asshole, some PM decides that they need to marble AI and Copilot into everything. and they put it into Notepad, which nobody asked for, and I'm sure nobody's used ever. And then it actually just makes it more of an exploitable surface. And then the conversation we have is just kind of moving on and not having a discussion about like, why the fuck would this be in there in the first place? Right? Like all the secure initiative, everyone's going to be measured on whatever out of security. It's like,
Such
yeah,
bullshit. Like, why do we
it is
take these people
complete
seriously?
bullshit.
Let
I
me read.
don't.
Let me
Who
read
the fuck does?
the same thing that you just mentioned, because I pulled it up while you were talking. I pulled it up because it flicked into my mind as well. Let me read the last paragraph of Satya's letter announcing the Secure Futures Initiative, that they all begged us to buy into, that they were going to be serious. And if I take them at face value and I buy into it, this is the letter this is Satya's words. If you're faced with trade-off between security and another priority, your answer is clear. Big bold letters, do security. In some cases, this will mean prioritizing security above other things we do, such as releasing new features or providing ongoing support for legacy systems. This is key to advancing both our platform quality and capability, such that we can protect the digital estates of our customers and build a safer world for all. So we got all of this kind of top down from the CEO. We all applauded. The CEO is coming down hard. If you're faced with the trade-off between security and another priority, your answer is clear. Do security. They are not. Which means either nobody listens to him and cares, or it's just one complete fluff of bullshit everywhere. I don't know. What do you think it is, Costin?
I think the people at the top can request or demand things, but the people in the field need to make money, and at the moment the vibe is AI.
And they're hearing the demand for revenue as well, right? Because the people at the top are saying this, are also the same people saying we need to
make money.
There you go.
Security is the most important thing, but you need to make money.
But
they don't work together.
Let's take that a little bit further though, because no one is making money off of Notepad having AI in it, right? So like let's keep pulling the thread of perverse incentives, right? Because to me, saying, we need to make money makes it sound like it's a pragmatic decision that makes a whole lot of sense. It's just not one that we like. And that clearly is not the case here, because you're not making any fucking money out of shoving AI into Notepad. What you might be doing is you're padding some internal metrics, right? X apps within Windows now have Copilot. And B, maybe this means that Copilot burns more tokens, so we can pretend that people are using Copilot AI, which nobody's fucking using unless they're forced to, because it's a piece of shit. Microsoft, if you would like people to use Copilot AI, make it not a piece of shit. Make it not a piece of shit. Like everybody else is in love with AI because of the advanced features that people are putting into Claude Code and how reliable Gemini Pro, 3 Pro is. So if people aren't using your piece of shit Copilot, it's because it fucking sucks. It's not because it's not ubiquitously added to everything. But I'm sure that on some level there's another command from on high that says that we need to have AI in everything, and we need to sell X amount of token. We need to burn X amount of tokens to show that people are using it. And frankly, these are the sorts of decisions where putting it on customers as saying like customers need to demand blah, 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 kind of feels like a moot point. What I want to know is who are the majority shareholders in Microsoft? Because that's where like somebody, presumably Satya, is pulling someone's leg. Like I'm just gonna guess it's Satya. I'm just gonna, the buck has to stop somewhere. Yeah. So I'm gonna put it at Satya. You are telling me that there is some insistence that AI has to be this really important thing, and that we need to have more of it, and that it needs to be central to Microsoft's strategy, and that they need to sell X amount of tokens and burn X amount of tokens to show that people are using their AI bullshit. And clearly there's a level of like malicious compliance here. Like there's a level of, oh, they want that, just pad the numbers here and here, and then we can go back to the board and say, look guys, like You wanted AI, we're doing AI. You wanted this thing, like look at how much we're, effectively doing it. Because if you just look at it from the top down with these numbers, right? Like we did it, we're doing it. And it's obviously not true. It's obviously not true, right? So those are the moments when, no, I don't think it's up to the customers because they clearly don't give a shit about the customers. I think it's up to the shareholders to be like, you know, we're already criticizing Microsoft for missing the boat on the AI thing. They don't actually have a frontier lab. They're not actually building anything novel with AI as far as we can tell. I think Satya's whole strategy boils down to, well, I'm just going to wait until Sam Altman, um, that noose that I hung around Sam Altman's neck tightens enough to choke him. And then I'm going to inherit a frontier lab through OpenAI. And then I'm not going to build half of the data centers people ask for. I'm going to wait until it's like a little cheaper and the technology is a little more settled and we kind of know what we're doing. And then I'm going to, kind of race to like adopt the newer thing, right? Like that was the whole, that's why I kept bringing up this like Dwarkesh podcast with Satya and Dylan Patel. And I thought it was super interesting that Dylan Patel was there and that Satya would take an interview with, for those of you that don't know, Dylan Patel is the guy that runs Semi-Analysis, which is like the most fascinating, basically supply chain analysis blog when it comes to AI and these sorts of like modern applications. And I say it's fascinating because these dudes are clearly, they have such a beat on the supply chains and logistics that go into model training and model use and so on, that it feels like reading like an internal report for some of these companies. Like they're basically like, yeah, you're claiming that you're going to do this, but we see that you've only bought these many plots of land and there's no power lines that are running to that plot of land. So you say you're going to build a data center, but clearly that shit's not real, right? Like that kind of analysis that I think is sort of fascinating because it keeps people honest. So to see Dylan Patel on a fucking like 45-minute interview with Satya, like he pushed back hard and frankly, I think Satya kind of did his best dance to like stay in the conversation, but I think some of those answers were very telling of just how bad Microsoft's strategy is, just how kind of like, yeah, they're hedging. They don't, the sense seems to be that they don't want to be exposed. If you assume that there's a master plan here and that Satya knows what he's doing, then it seems to be that he'd rather not be in the race with everybody else. He'd rather wait until people are kind of winded and things are kind of like the utility, the value is clear, and maybe then you deploy your resources, assuming that that's something you can do to catch up.
Yeah, but he threw the first batch of billions into OpenAI in the early days, though. I mean, it's not entirely fair to say he's sitting it out and waiting to see.
But that was an interesting move. That may have been the poison pill that OpenAI may never recover from, and that they're trying to recover from. Because I don't know the full details of that contracting agreement, but if you remember, that comes around the time like all that stuff kind of expands around the time that like people tried to oust Sama as like the lead of OpenAI, and then like Microsoft offered
had hired
Sam
him.
Altman. Yeah, they offered him a position, and like
the
it was like this,
drama. Yeah,
it was like this like it was this moment of having this like deal with the devil inked, which I think might have been the way that Sam survived that coup, but I'm not sure. I think all of OpenAI's like life right now, their entire priorities seems to be more towards trying to remove that noose that Microsoft put around their necks than it is about the competition with everybody else. And I don't know the details, and I certainly can't speak for OpenAI at all. And I like the company. I want them to do well, but I don't think this is like Microsoft is this like frenemy that is clearly just draining the life out of OAI. And I think Satya is quite overtly treating it as, oh, I don't need to create a frontier lab. I don't need to actually invest into making better AI. I have this backdoor way of benefiting from whatever OpenAI does. So I can just wait and like wait them out and let them kind of starve, and then I can just swallow them. And that's it. Like, we're good.
I don't know. I just see Microsoft continuing to shove AI into everything. This Notepad RC is just one small example. We don't know what's going to happen on the iPhone when all the AI starts getting shoved in there. Which segs into iOS 26.3 came out this week. We have a new operating system from Apple, and of course, you know me, I control F right away to look for the word exploited in there, and we find
massively.
We find that Apple is aware of a report that one of the issues, CVE 2026-20700, may have been exploited in an extremely sophisticated attack against specific target individuals on versions of iOS before iOS 26. There's a mouthful there. There's a usual mouthful there. Discovered by Google TAG, Google Threat Analysis Group, vulnerability in DYLD.
Yeah. It's like a DLL for macOS.
Right. And there's also a mention there that some older CVEs were also fixed in this report. I think there were some old WebKit bugs. Do we know anything beyond what Apple tells us in this bulletin, Costin?
So what Apple says in this bulletin is very little, but I thought that these older reports are particularly interesting. And these have been fixed in December last year, CV 2025-14174 and 43529. Those are more interesting because those are WebKit bugs. In particular, this new bug in DYLD may allow for code execution. I think that this one in particular might be useful to escape a sandbox. I think that would be the main usage for this particular bugs, and the previous ones obviously being WebKit bugs, they could allow the initial access into a device. So I think that they're probably all are part of the same chain or the same chains that Google Tag somehow found.
Google Tag reported the WebKit bugs that you're mentioning from December, right?
They did, yeah. They reported those, and this new one is also reported by Google Tag, which makes me think that they are related, because even Apple says that those previous ones from December were also issued in response to this report. So all three of them appear to be part of the same chain. I think they fixed the WebKit bugs first to kind of close the door. And then now they close this other one, which probably allowed for this sandbox escape. Unfortunately, we don't know which group was using it. Was it like some cyber mercenary group? Was it a nation state? Was it China? Was it, I don't know, Indonesia? Was it Vietnam? Was it China again? Who knows?
It was a top tier attacker, though. I mean, the language here tells us it's one of those either commercial spyware or nation state.
Because nowadays, every single one of these reports, it says, may have been exploited in an extremely sophisticated attack. Extremely. But it feels like all of them are nowadays extremely sophisticated attacks. I can't remember one that isn't extremely, like very sophisticated or sophisticated or gravely sophisticated.
Do you think this language is imprecise? It's just kind of language made up by PR people, or this is like precise language that tells you it is?
If it's more sophisticated than others, or is it like the most sophisticated, or if it's like just I think the extremely sophisticated part here, it kind of tries to imply that it's unlikely that they would waste these goodies on the loser you. They're gonna waste these goodies on the bigger guys, out there at the top,
but this doesn't bother any
journalists or activists or all those people who are like really dangerous to society. They're not gonna waste them on you particularly, because it's extremely sophisticated attack.
In addition, it only always works on older versions of it. They're still patching it in 26.2, but they're always very clear that this is always an exploit that worked in older versions of iOS before what we have right now. I don't know. Juanito, you patch your iPhone?
Yep, patched the iPhone. I updated the macOS thing.
How big was your update, by the way?
Fuck if I know, man. It just happened last night.
So people on X, they report all sorts of weird sizes. For me, it was 11.5 gigabytes. Other people got like 13 gigabytes. The update, which is mind blowing. I don't remember seeing 13 gigabyte
Why would
iOS
it be
updates.
different sizes for different
Exactly.
people?
And some people said it was only 3 gigabytes for me. So why are we getting 13 gigabytes?
Hagel's in the chat saying 3 gigs here.
3 gigs, you see?
I'm pretty
for
sure
me,
mine
11.
was probably like 3 gigs too. They served you some special goodies, Custom.
Oh.
You know, they given you
the full experience.
The full experience, the certified pre-owned experience.
At this stage, we never hear about this stuff until maybe a Citizen Lab report a few months from now mentions one of these CVEs that we go back and say, oh yeah, this was the thing we talked about in February when Apple patched. Like, again, like Microsoft, we don't get any sort of threat hunting, telemetry, data, anything at all, right? It's just go patch. It's against those people and move on with your life.
Look, man, this is why, you know, for God knows how long in this podcast, I kept bitching about like regulation, and people were like, oh, but like the government sucks, and like big government, blah blah. And I agree. I'm not saying that I am a huge fan of government or big government, or that I even trust that the government's going to be able to do it. But it turns out that when nobody requires any kind of enforcement of any kind of standards whatsoever, that companies don't just arbitrarily choose to share information that's inconvenient to them. And security failures are an inconvenience that people would rather not talk about. So I don't know, man. If all the libertarians are here are like that, you know, that over government and antitrust and regulation, that's fine by me, but like then at least somebody give me some kind of shareholder-led conscience mechanism that is somehow going to work here, because that seems to be the only thing they're going to listen to is ownership and markets. So how do we get some kind of market priority that says you're not allowed to do this, or like this is just not a good way to do business?
Gustin, what are you telling your TLP black customers and people coming to you around this thing? Just patch, enable lockdown mode, move on with your life. I mean, you don't have the ability to actively hunt for any of this stuff when you see Apple market as exploited, right?
Of course, there are a lot of things you can do in order to hunt for this. Maybe not for this specifically, but for things in general. So what I always recommend, you know, my recommendations: enable lockdown mode, disable iMessage, disable FaceTime, reboot daily. Probably reboot daily is one of the most powerful things you can do.
You actually do reboot daily?
Almost every day. Every day. I tell you, this is impossible unless you have an app that reminds you to reboot, because otherwise you just forget. But I tell you, like, this is one of the most powerful things you can do, reboot daily. Tap your network traffic, save everything, save all the net flow, save the DNS requests, save all the traffic if you can actually afford that. And you can do hunting later. Also, you can do hunting in real time. This is one of our recommendations. You set up a WireGuard profile on your phone. You tunnel all your traffic to a server you control. You save all the traffic there and you store it forever. And whenever Citizen Lab or whoever releases a new report, you can go back and hunt for things.
There we go.
When Costin starts making those recommendations, I'm just like, this doesn't sound like a usable phone. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, you know, remove iMessage and then like cut the camera out and remove the microphone and then break the screen in half and like take the GPS thing and just throw it in the trash.
What?
You're like, and then what is this thing?
Let's be honest. Like one thing you can do is reboot daily. Like you can do that, right? Reboot
turn
daily,
off. I think turning off iMessage. Turning off iMessage
because in America, without iMessage, you're nobody, right?
Yeah, you're just an immigrant.
Yeah, and I think lockdown mode and copying and pasting URLs and all that stuff is just like such a pain in the ass.
You're not into that. I see.
Yeah.
What about WireGuard? The WireGuard profile, tunneling your traffic, that's doable. Like once you do it once, and then you never walk back. Like
Does it affect
That's
battery
doable.
life?
No, zero. Like
Because you had
maybe
me
1%.
trying to run a VPN on this thing. You run Mulvad on an iPhone, and your phone is 50% battery.
It was like that when Mulvad was using OpenVPN, but now they switched to
It's still
WireGuard
bad.
completely. And if you just run the WireGuard app from Jason himself, the battery impact for me is less than 5%.
What about the people who can't do active monitoring on their traffic? There's just it's just so prohibitive, cost, time, resources, blah blah blah. Is there anything else those folks can
Yeah,
do?
sure. They can do two things which are very important. One, make backups. Regularly backup your phone. This, again, it's not too bad. You need storage space, obviously. Like for me, a backup is 200 gigs. So you need to save that somewhere. And two, create CSDX, trigger these analytics, diagnostics every now and then, like once per month, once every 2-3 months. Save them, put them somewhere in storage, have them just in case, because you never know when you can go back and look at those. Or imagine there's one day you get this Apple notification or a friend comes to you and says, hey, we have an indication that your iPhone was hit. And you ask, how do you know? Says, I can't tell you. Like, we know. I'm like, okay. And then you say, what to do? You say, ask Costin to take a look at your phone. And Costin comes and says, can I take a look at? Do you have any backups or CSDX from the last year or the 2 years? And if you say no, it's different from, yeah, I have. If you have, we can look back and see maybe at some point there were artifacts visible in those backups or CSDX that allow us to see what happened. Because in most cases, when we get there after the notification, there's nothing left. In most cases, you can't find anything anymore. In some cases, people say, I don't even know, like this is a new phone I got in December. But then
How
I
does
got it
Citizen
on
Lab
December
find?
1st.
How are Bill Marchuk and these guys finding?
I think
In cases where I don't have backups.
what really matters is volume, and what really matters are the magnet of threats. If you have access to a good pool of magnets of threats, who are those? Activists, notably activists in the Middle East, in countries where these tools are very prevalent, then you increase the probability of finding interesting things. And also, if you get access to the physical phone, not just backups, but like the physical access to that phone can also help in some cases, because you can put it, let's say, I can't jailbreak it today, but I'm going to put it in storage and I'm going to revisit this 1 year from now or 2 years from now. I can wait, I don't mind. And 2 years from now, I use a jailbreak and I get full access to the phone and I can extract more information from there, which allows me to find something I may have missed in the past. And also knowledge improves, constantly improves. Like every year we know a little bit more about how these exploits work, what kind of traces they leave. People discover new features in iOS or new databases that have more forensics data and better tools appear, like the ECSIRT CSDX framework. Again, there's better tools every single year, so that allows us to find more. At the same time, I think that attackers also get better and better because they read the blogs as well and they see that, we found that your malware forgot to wipe itself in the battery usage log. So it's not in the process list, but it's in battery. So there's like a discrepancy between these two logs. So that's how we find it. And then the next time they just wipe it from there as well. And then there's like less traces until the moment where there's almost no trace left, or there are some traces, but they're not definitive. Those traces suggest something may have happened, but they can also mean that just some bad luck. You were a magnet for bad luck, not necessarily for Paragon Graphite or Blue Ocean or one of the other things that people don't talk about. You are maybe just an attractor for bad luck.
How is Google Tag finding this stuff?
With a lot of good luck, I think. Like the solution and the cure for bad luck is good luck. The more good luck you have, the better chances to find something interesting. And good luck is directly proportional, I think, to your visibility and the amount of data you collect. So the more visibility you have, the more intelligence on the attacker, sometimes like inside information about exactly what the attackers are doing today. And let's say maybe not Google Tech, but let's say I am doing some investigations and I spot some kind of water hole. And this water hole leverages an exploitation server. If I have the ability to monitor the exploitation server for 2-3 weeks before I shut it down, that gives me a lot of intelligence about whom are they targeting, who are the victims, what kind of exploits are coming, with what. If I can even emulate, let's say, some vulnerable devices of my own, or even bring some old devices and try to get them infected with a VPN in some specific country, or maybe with some kind of an attractive login in a certain forum where this water hole was being deployed, that brings goodies. So yeah, the more intelligence you have and the more patience you have, the better things you find and the more good luck you have.
Just a thought that came to my head, which is a recurring question that I like to ask, is how much of this stuff do you think we're actually finding versus how much is actually happening? Are we finding one? Is Google and is that these guys finding just like a 1% tip of the iceberg? Do we think there are thousands and thousands of these things floating around? What do you think?
It's always a question not of what you find, but what you talk about and what you patch and what you publish. So there's like different levels. And we keep getting back to this issue over and over. Maybe you discover something, but you don't know exactly what exploit was used to deliver it. And I don't even have the binary or the malware itself. But still, I know that this happened. I know some people were targeted. What can I do about it? Keep watching, keep trying to get more related evidence. Or if, let's say, I find the exploitation server, I find the new 0-day, I try to patch it, but there's no blog. Or I find, let's say, something and there's a blog, there's more information, there's patches, and the full circle, like the full package with everything that is available. And of course, this produces some effect from the attacker side as well. They can adapt their strategies, just stop doing that. They realize that Google is watching them, so they change strategy. They try to, I don't know, only deliver this to certain IP address ranges, fine-tune their exploitation kit, implement these session keys, encryption with public keys only in memory to deliver only to the victim. Even if you have the traffic, you can't decrypt the traffic at a later stage. Quantum resistance, all of these are on the table. 1%.
Give me a percentage, you think. 1% you think we're finding? Wow. Juanito, you believe that? You think that's that bad? In terms of visibility and our ability to know, just, I don't know.
Of course it's that bad.
1%?
I mean, I don't know. I don't like putting random numbers to random things, but I don't need to slap an arbitrarily low sum to say that if we have systemically blinded ourselves, then we're not going to see a lot of things, right? And like that's my annoyance with anybody that defends like the Apple stance to telemetry and threat intel, and even with most of these shops, right? Like the what's being done here is a seemingly principled way of keeping visibility low to then be able to manage the scope of what we claim the problem is. But I think we all know that that's not true, especially like with iOS. And frankly, it's to their credit and their detriment that iOS is as secure a platform as it is, but it's an unquantifiably secure platform, right? Like how much better would it be if you could say of all this, we know the breadth of anomalous behavior, attempts, testing, attempted exploitation, the actual like dwell time of things that escaped what we have as protections, and can therefore say that iOS is very, very secure because out of the 100% of attempts at exploitation or anomalous behavior or attempts to corrupt memory or, attempts to load a backdoor, whatever the fuck you want, our platform detection and security engineering approach blocks 97% of attempts. And therefore, it's the 3% that we're working against. But, when we say you don't need to worry about it, it's because we know the exploitable surface, we're monitoring for anomalies, we're quantifying what that is, and we can tell you that we know this activity is currently relegated to only Mexico. We know that this activity is still in the testing phases. We know this, that, and the other. And the only way to know that is by being good about collecting telemetry and focusing on anomalies and knowing that you don't know what you don't know. And that doesn't mean that it's okay. It means that you need to do things that allow you to understand the shape of and depth of what you don't know. And that's how we used to do APT investigations. And frankly, if there's anything I think we learned, it was that we never knew just how many things we didn't know were out there until you came up with some other way of saying, what happens if we profile every single machine and what are all the components that are in System 32 across a fleet of 100 million endpoints, and we statistically determine how much variance there is in the hash content of this type of file with this kind of name, and then you go, okay, what are the outliers? Well, shit, there's only 12 outliers in a fleet of 100 million. What the fuck are those? Would you look at that, an entire APT operation that we had never found out about, and you pull that one thread, and there's, 1,000 incidents that you never saw over the past 10 years of telemetry, and it's just because you went looking for what you don't know. That's a mentality that was really native to us at Grade. It's really native, I think, for folks that have gotten to do big game hunting, APT type stuff, but seems completely obtuse to the security engineering type folk that work at places like Apple. And we cannot for the life of you explain it to them, because immediately it becomes this discussion about you want us to weaken the platform, you want us to introduce what it's no, nor do I want you to create some kind of panopticon that law enforcement can now take advantage of. I just want you to take that same cleverness, unbelievable cleverness that you're using to create these unbelievable exploit category defeating mechanisms, and apply it to the fact that there are active adversaries out there who are very invested in finding ways to get past what you do, and they seem to always find a way, because it's quite possible that it is impossible for you to create a platform where that is not possible. So maybe you can come up with a way to say, hey, every fucking iPhone is about as standard a device as you could hope for. Everything is placed into certain places. The hardware is relatively the same. The OS versions are relatively the same. It's about as simple, quote, and I say that, with huge asterisks, but it's about as simple as it can get, as far as being able to do this kind of herd immunity approach of saying, what's normal? This is normal. Who falls within normal? Almost everyone. Who doesn't fall within normal? Okay, what the fuck is happening in that little pool? And that's a very tried and true method that I don't think they're doing. Even if they claim they're doing it, they're clearly not doing it to that level. And I don't understand why you wouldn't, other than not wanting to know just how bad the situation actually is.
Did you guys get a chance to read this Estonia Foreign Intelligence Service annual report that they put out this week? And I bring it up because a Russian general there was an assassination attempt on a Russian general in Moscow. And the Russians came out and says, hey, we have evidence that the Polish intelligence service was installed at some point had helped with some of the recruiting in the early days. And it brought me back to the podcast where Juanito is talking about the Poles are itching to retaliate, itching to show off what they've been preparing for. So I tie all of that together into this Estonia Foreign Intelligence Service paper that was focused mostly on Russia and what's going on with Russia around the war, military losses, adapting for long-term confrontation. And one of the things they made a point to make clear is that Russian sanctions evasions is going to rely heavily on cyber-enabled procurement networks. There's a lot of cyber angles here. Costin, did you get a chance to read this report? Anything at all stood out to you as interesting, new, noteworthy?
These reports are always interesting to read. In particular, all the Baltic states, they publish these kind of reports on a yearly basis, and typically all of them are good. Like in the past, we got some goodies in there, such as the famous report in which they talk about the fact that Turla or like different tools overlap between Turla and APT 29, which I think was one of the most
we did an
interesting
episode on that, right?
findings. Yeah. So these reports are always great to read. This one in particular, I thought there's like nothing groundbreaking in it. It's kind of, just rehashing the news for the past years and the kind of things that we know. We know that the war is exhausting Russia. So internally, they have massive losses. The economy is a bit shaking. There's growing repression at home. People are under constant control. Even like a few days ago, Russia blocked WhatsApp access and they greatly throttled Telegram. So there's like all these things happening in there. So kind of, we saw it coming. To me, the report just kind of emphasizes all these things that we knew. What I thought it was a bit interesting and new is when they talk about the use of AI and digital platforms as influence tools, which we know that both China and Russia have been using massively in order to create manipulated digital content, fake movies, simply to change perceptions, to push propaganda, to kind of, let's say, turn people against their own governments, to divide and conquer people in the European Union, which, in my opinion, again, this is working. I've been saying this for many years. When people were laughing at what Russia is doing, they was like, this is inconsequential. This had like zero real world impact. We measured the effect of these Russian influence operations, and the impact was 1.5%. In my opinion, this is a long-term game, and it is working long-term in the sense that slowly people either they get divided, they get split into the left and the right, or I don't know, pro-family or pro-LGBTQI plus, or pro-Democrats or pro-Republicans, or like whatever. They get split into groups, and the moment that there's a divide and people have different opinions and you can't agree even on the most basic things, this is when everything collapses and things break down and the order breaks down. And it makes it much easier to influence and to bring onto your side. And I thought the growing use of AI, as outlined in this report, probably poses the highest risk we have seen so far, because it makes all these kind of attacks so much easier for Russia. Like it reduces costs, it reduces the entry costs especially, and it makes them more easier to believe. Like whenever you see these kind of news stories, it's much easier to believe them because they look much better. They're based partly on true stories, and that makes it much easier, to accept. Like as at the moment that you start leaning into that direction.
One that stood out for me is that the Estonians actually believe that the NATO alliance is still very strong and that Article 5 stands and that the Russians respect it. So even in this narrative here, that where the Europeans are complaining that the Americans are abandoning NATO and this continuing conversation, we get an assessment from the Estonians who are right next door saying, hey, we believe that our NATO membership gives us a level of protection because the Russians are calculating that Article 5 still exists. Juanito, you got a chance to scan this report at all?
A bit, definitely not like as deeply as I'd like to, because all the stuff that comes out of Estonian intelligence about Russia is usually really very good. And like, I think for a while, what you've had is like journalists like Michael Weiss who have seem to be taking a great deal of input from stuff that comes out of like Estonian intel and making some pretty great assessments out of it. The NATO part of it, look, let's be clear here, right? If NATO members start to talk about NATO as if it doesn't exist and about Article 5 as if it's not real, then it's not real. So like I don't take this as an assessment of the reality of what NATO and Article 5 are. I take it as an expression of commitment, at least on the part of a very small country in a very precarious position that needs NATO and Article 5 to be a thing. And frankly, like I don't even take that as like some kind of naivete or anything like that. I just take it as like that is what a responsible player has to do when they claim that a policy and a group and a government stance and whatever are real. And I would expect the same of basically any and all NATO members, right? Like if anything, the discussions about like the US's current approach to NATO almost all have to do like mostly talk about like the irresponsibility of talking about it that way openly and publicly. Because it's to say that if we have legitimate gripes against, how NATO has been run or how much we are investing into it as opposed to other people and so on, those are things that I think folks would be open to and welcome to discussing in private. When you have those discussions in public, yes, that adds perhaps negotiating pressure or whatever, but it also delegitimizes and scares, folks about like the reality, veracity, reliability of the alliance. And that is not desirable when you have folks like the Russians who are, as Kosin mentioned about like sort of they're looking to split folks into different alliances. They are looking to somehow delegitimize and demotivate and find those psychological fracture points precisely to take advantage of them as ways to change these things. And that's I don't say that as some kind of Russophobia. I say that as that has been an established practice in Russia as far back as the fucking Cheka. And Thomas Rid, of all people, one of our friends who's been on this podcast, has written an entire fucking book about it. So like acting like we're surprised or like this isn't the way things are is a kind of ignorance that I, like self-inflicted ignorance that I don't have patience for. But I don't know what we do in this situation. What I would say is it's a really important time for NATO members that are not the US to show what it's like to be a successful, involved, invested part of NATO, right? Like it's a good time for everybody else to show that they do cool shit, that they know a lot of stuff, that they're willing to gird themselves and show their resolve and do some interesting things to push back on the Russians. Because that's what legitimizes the fact that it's an alliance and that there are many different people with a lot of different powers and a lot of different capabilities who are willing to put, their best foot forward. And I would love to see some creativity, right? Like for me, the most interesting part was the assessment about the Russian economy in what I obviously, admittedly, what I had to glance through, right? Because like talking about the scope of the threat from the Russians is like, yes, good to know. And yes, but where I am interested is in the things that the Russian government cannot control by virtue of just reality. It's the same way that you saw things happen at the collapse of the Soviet Union. At the end of the day, bread lines and bad central planning and frustrations and cultural fractures are things that you can lie about as much as you want, and you can arrest people and you can throw them in jail, but people get hungry and people get pissed. And after a while, it's an ever escalating thing of trying to control your own people and trying to control the outside and trying to control perceptions and trying to control dissatisfaction and trying to prop up an economy while also everybody's stealing. And like you just have all these things that that no fortune can possibly outlive, but it becomes a matter of like strategic timing. So I'd love to see more pressure and more tightening of that noose and just bring them to compliance in that way.
Two things from the report, and I thought it was fascinating. The cover of the report has the cover of the report is fascinating. I'll put a link in the show description.
Oh yeah.
Click on the Estonian report and look at the cover photo, and just look at the cover. And the first person to send me an email or get in touch with me and tell me what it is. If you know, and we discussed it before, you're disqualified. Okay. If one of the listeners in the audience can look at that and tell me exactly what it is, you get a free 3-body problem hoodie. There's also a photo in it. There's also a photo in the report, Coste, with some text. What was that about?
I thought it was funny that Kauporosin, which is the director of the General Estonian Foreign Intelligence Service, he put a photo of himself in front of a tank, like a rusty old damaged Russian tank. And there's like
some Ukrainian flags. That's the Ukrainian flag, right?
Yeah, Ukrainian flags. And there's a message in there which reads Putin Huilo, which is, well, a rough translation would be something like Putin is a dick, something like this. It's very, very graphical.
They're trolling everywhere.
That is the message he is sending.
I love it.
The cover is fascinating.
On the other tank also it says something like Squadron or Battalion Azovu, which means the Azov battalion, I guess, which would be a Russian. I assume it will be a Russian tank, that one. An Ukrainian tank, I mean.
Alongside this news, we got some reporting, and I mentioned this briefly last week, but I want us to dig into it a little bit. Is the German government actually drafting actual legislation to revise powers internally around what the German foreign intelligence services can do in conducting cyber operations abroad? And this is the notion of we're gonna proactively do quote unquote hacking back. We will do. We'll give our internal security agencies more powers to go externally and do things in response to what's happening here. And the thing that keeps popping up, Costin, is hybrid threats. This is the things we want to fight back, because war is one thing and hybrid threat is another thing. Can you, for the audience, kind of put hybrid threats into context? What is a hybrid threat, and why is it different from a cyber war activity?
Well, do you remember back in the days when we were talking about next gen security? I would say that the best analogy here is that the hybrid threats are the antagonist to the next gen security. In essence, they're like no longer, let's say, kind of conventional threats that you know about, but a mix of all sorts of cyber operations that can include as well things like drone incursions or cyber attacks against critical infrastructure, or again a mix of sabotage or on the ground teams, like as we have seen in the past from the GRU, being on premise, trying to do Wi-Fi hacking and then leveraging that access either to steal materials that they later disseminate online with tiny modifications for their own purposes, such as, I don't know, influence operations or swinging results of elections. So I guess all that falls into this category of hybrid threats, no longer kind of conventional threats, but a mix of different things put together, full spectrum, if you want, in order to, let's say, achieve maximum impact with very little regard to norms, regulations, international law, or whatever kind of conventions exist that would prevent maybe targeting of civilians or medical institutions during war. Those, let's say, have little to do with what's happening nowadays. I mean, everything is on the table, everything is possible, as we have seen with this Polish cyber attack in December. It doesn't matter that this is affecting civilians. It could affect hospitals. It could lead to people's lives lost. It doesn't really matter. Everything is on the table. So I think that This is what worries Germany the most. Me personally, I'm a bit skeptical because of the biggest problem in Germany, as everybody knows, even as emphasized by their chancellor, is bureaucracy. The thing that he says at the moment, that's like the biggest threat to us, that he could have probably fixed for the past years or so, but like nevertheless, that's the biggest threat, bureaucracy. So with all that bureaucracy, I am a bit skeptical about passing all these laws and seeing them really implemented, all the way to seeing the hacking back taking place for real. But let's see. Like I think this week is also the Munich Security Conference. Remember, like back in the days, our old boss was going there every year. I think you still need some kind of invitation in order to attend it. And we haven't reached that level of glow and glam just yet. Maybe next year, maybe Juan with his CNN appearances.
We're not
will
being
get an invite.
invited. Nobody's inviting us to the Munich Security Forum to record a podcast over there.
We need to attract more good luck.
There is a major shift in Europe happening around an awareness that we have to do something different. Right, Juan? I mean, this hacking back and the conversation gets all fancy schmancy, but there's just a general feeling based on everything I've read and everything I've followed that in Europe there's a dramatic shift happening around. Like we need to be able to go on the offensive. And my question to you is, what do you think that looks like?
I mean, I'm not entirely certain. I'm not entirely certain what it looks like or what it should look like. I'm far be it for me to pretend that I'm some kind of war expert. But
nobody's fact checking us.
No. I want to answer thoughtfully because I think there has always been this idea of like, well, they need to do more. And like, why aren't the Europeans doing more to defend themselves? Why aren't the Europeans doing more? And like, frankly, we make fun of the European Union all the time. And I think rightly so, because there's, for all the great traditions and all the amazing accomplishments of each of these individual nations on their own, with their storied pasts and with their individual competencies, like none of these countries are anything to laugh at. It's not that they're incapable of doing things. You know, the Finns are pretty impressive in how they've dealt with Russia in the past, as are the Poles. There's a lot to be said about what Romania and Latvia and Estonia and Sweden and all these other places can bring to bear. And of course, the Western European nations have shown their mettle, right, in World War II and all these other parts, and they can do things. The problem, I think, is one of a kind of cultural entrenchment in this notion of virtue signaling at the level of the European Union and European Commission and so on, that has gotten so fucking out of hand that it makes them look silly and foolish. And it makes it seem that like we are going to default into hand-wringing so much as to watch things kind of fall apart without just doing something. And in this particular case, and I know we're supposed to be talking about Germany and cyber, but I think more broadly, when we're looking at a continent at risk of being overrun by a nation that has shown that they're willing to do so because they've done it before, the idea that you're okay letting the Ukrainians kind of bear the brunt, and you're hoping the Americans somehow come and fix things for you, and you know, you're saying your strong condemnations and you're sending your strong letters, but then you just kind of like are still trying to deal with the Russians as far as like getting natural resources and natural gas, right? Like Germany did not choose to not get natural gas from the Russians. A well-timed operation somehow took that option out of their hands. Those are the sorts of things where you look at them and go, guys, like, What the
You're
fuck?
talking about the pipeline sabotage, right?
Yeah. I'm talking about the pipeline sabotage, but we could have discussions about that with like nuclear energy and natural gas and oil and a bunch of other things, right? Like there's this speaking out of both sides of your mouth in a way that just makes you look feckless and weak and kind of it's a little disgusting, precisely because you're not helpless and it's your security more than our security, right? If all of Western Europe turned into Russia, which is not, I mean, it's not gonna, that's not exactly what's on the cards. But if all of Western Europe turned into Russia, we'd still be in a, I'm not saying it's all the same. I'm just saying that, like, as far as the US is concerned, we're still just dealing with the same blocks, the Chinese, the Russians, the Americans, right? Like whatever the fuck's happening in the Middle East half the time, just with greater resources. Obviously, that's not what we want to see. But like, you should have a greater vested interest in this yourself. Landing this right back down to the whole Germany cyber thing. Germany's approach to intelligence and cyber and military operations is like silly and sort of self-defeating and I get it, right? Like you're still kind of traumatized
In what way?
from in its
How are they different from
unwillingness.
the Poles or the Dutch?
Oh my God. Come on. Like they
I know the
couldn't
Dutch is a bad example.
well, or the Poles, they couldn't be any more different, right? And of course, like geographically, you're in a different place. Historically, you're in a different place, right? Like a lot of Germany's hesitation about its own powers and its own military and whatnot is obviously um, about its history, right? Like what happened with the Stasi, what happened in World War II, what happened, like they, of course, there are legitimate reasons why you can be suspicious of giving powers to your own government, and you want that to somehow go in a different way. And sometimes you just say, hey, look, we just don't trust ourselves with X, Y, and Z. But instead, what we see is like this kind of like hemming and hawing, right? And yeah, you could have cyber, but no, you can't buy the tools. And like, yeah, you can do this, but no, actually, like, we won't let law enforcement do it. We won't let the IC do it. Like, yeah, we'll claim that we're a partner involved in X, Y, and Z, but the optics are so bad and we're unwilling to deal with the optics. So we'll ask the Americans to do it. And then when the Americans get caught, we're going to condemn the Americans for doing it. And you're like, come on, just grow the fuck up, right? Like, it's that kind of thing. It was like okay and cutesy and whatever during the Snowden, like post Snowden thing, where we all looked at Europe and we're like, yeah, okay, you're gonna beat us up for doing the things that you wanted us to do. Got it. And then now it's actual wartime, and we're like, you can't keep going with this kind of.
Well, they're not. They're drafting legislation to change things. And the original question I asked is, what do you think this looks like? And I'll just put an addendum to it. It's like, are we worried about civilian blowback when all of this? We have the German initiative, we have France, the Netherlands, including offensive cyber capabilities in their like cyber strategies. We have Latvia talking about, the only way to respond is to go do offensive operations. Are we worried that there's going to be some mistake, something that affects civilians at some point?
No, I'll look. I'll believe it.
So what does this hackback looks like?
I don't fucking know, because this is yet again sitting like some bullshit of like kind of standing in the doorway, leveraging threats. Because why haven't you been cybering, and what the fuck are you even going to do? Right? Like, to me, when it comes to politicians, when it comes to policy, when you talk about cyber offensive, to me, that's almost universally a stalling tactic. It's never like, I never look at it as like, oh, look, they're finally going to pull out the cyber missiles, like shit's about to get real. It's like, no, it's a kind of like bitch ass way of saying like, oh, we're going to do some shit. We're not going to do like shit you can see, but like we're going to do some shit, and like you won't even know it's happening, and you won't even know the fact that like we said we were going to do it and then we didn't do it, right? Like it's just so fucking lame. Oh, Ryan, you're muted. So I know you're like pushing back, but I can't hear you.
But isn't that how we want it to work? We don't want to see it. We don't want it to affect civilians. We don't want it to affect water supply somewhere. We're not expecting the Germans to go hacking into Russia's water supply and poisoning people. I mean, you want it to be attacking their infrastructure at some point, maybe have it be military targets, or I don't know.
I'm not saying look, if you're going to talk about it, then you better be doing something, right? Like, and that's my point, right? If the whole, it's not even signaling, it's just bullshit threatening and then not doing anything, which is like, to me, that's about posturing internally, because I don't think the Russians are sitting around going, oh my God, now we're facing the full cyber offensive might of whatever. It's like, who the fuck cares? And also, the reason I say stalling tactic is, if you're willing to shut down the power with cyber, how about you just fly a couple of jets and bomb a couple of power plants? Like, if we're at war, how about you act like we're at war? Right? Like, all this bullshit about like not setting off World War III and blah, blah, blah. Like, are we there or are we not? Are we fighting or are we not? Are you defending European territory, or are you just kind of hoping it doesn't come your way? Are you just kind of hoping we can make a little more money and everyone can just keep pretending for a little longer and maybe the Ukrainians will just solve this problem for us? And you're like, grow the fuck up.
Let me bring in the only European on this conversation. Costin looks around. Costin, what do you think this looks like? I mean, what would you like to see change from what the current passive state is to what these rumblings are? How do you respond to what Juanito said about your European leadership?
I think in my mind, what they mean by this, so we say we'll disrupt hackers, we'll destroy their infrastructure. This is pretty much in line with what the Interpol or like the Dutch police or the German police, the BKA, the BFE have been doing for many years against cyber criminals. So what does it mean? Like with the ransomware, you just seize their servers, you destroy their backups. If you want to be, let's say, be a bit more aggressive, remember the discussion from a number of episodes ago when the US law enforcement went into this meeting and started bragging about the fact they hacked into some infrastructure and they started wiping servers and deleting backups. So all of that, I think it's on the table because the potential for collateral damage is very little. If you just hack into the command and control servers used by, let's say, no-name 05716, and you just wipe them, or if you just, let's say, corrupt their servers so they no longer send commands, or you throttle their network traffic so they no longer deliver the commands to all the bots around the world, that is like an effective measure which has a visible impact. You can even measure the impact and you can say, yeah, we degraded or damaged their operations by 90%. So now it's only 10% of what they used to be. So all of that is, I think, on the table. In addition to that, also remember what the NSA did back in the days against the Russian troll farms, when through an exploit from an iPhone that was temporarily connected into this air-gapped network, they managed to get access. They wiped all the UPSs, like they bricked their UPSs, they wiped all the servers and all the backups and left kind of a message like, be careful, this time we were gentle, next time it's sanctions, and we're gonna cut your Gmail accounts as well, your personal ones, including all your photos of your dogs and cats that you've been saving there with your Android phones with this particular phone number that you've been using to call your grandmother with this phone number. And these kind of things, I think they've been done in the past.
And they're probably happening right now.
I'm a bit skeptical about Germany doing this because of the bureaucracy problem they have, and of course other problems. But FBI or the US doing all the things, or the Dutch police, like we always hold the Dutch in a very high regard because of their capabilities and willingness to use those capabilities. I think all of that is doable and it's on the table. But let's see with Germany.
The willingness conversation, Juan, is a political thing? Is a domestic politics thing? Like what in addition, aside from the bureaucracy and going through all those layers and so on, where does the willingness stop?
I think it's a bureaucracy thing. I think it's an optics thing. I think it's a combination of like almost like a diffusion of responsibility in some ways, right? But also the Europeans, sorry, and I forgive me for making such a caricature of Europeans, right? Like we have plenty of brilliant friends in Europe, Coast and being
We're
one
not
of
talking
them.
about them.
But
We're talking
like
about those other Europeans.
no, like
Well,
European
as any
politicians.
place in the world, any country, any continent, there's the population, and then there's like the politicians who pretend to be experts in some domain and
Right.
want to decide how you should do things. So it's
Right.
perfectly fine when you talk about Europeans if you
Well,
refer to some of those categories. It's
I'm
fine.
sure it's shit referring to European politicians and bureaucrats, and because what I was gonna say is the real problem with with the way European politicians approach these discussions is that they drink their own Kool-Aid way too much. Like they believe the bullshit that they sell to a point of like ridiculousness, right? Like try talking to some of these people about GDPR. GDPR is obviously a failed, idiotic measure. It was completely a matter of like patting yourself on the back for like pretending that you won or changed something. It's massively inconvenient. All it's done is degrade the quality of the internet, and I've yet to see anything privacy wise that has been done other than enable a constant backdoor way for the European Union to extract fees from American companies from time to time without ever making any meaningful impact on privacy whatsoever, and degrading our ability to do security by taking away security telemetry and giving everybody an excuse to throw away valuable data. So I don't know what the fuck GDPR ever did that was good in any way. But try talking to any European politician or government, whatever, about GDPR. And I've done it at like embassy parties out here. And like you just see, like, there's just, you can't get past the ideological bent that says that this was like we put this on the board and it's amazing. I'm like, look, I'm not trying to tell you that your work is not valuable, but like, let's just talk about the mechanics of how this thing works. What the fuck does it accomplish? And I think, and that, again, I'm not trying to just criticize the Europeans. It's more that same shit applies when it comes to cyber. The same nonsense that we talk about with like offensive operations and privacy concerns and oh my god, what if we hack the thing and it was the wrong thing and then a hospital turns off and a baby dies. That kind of, overwrought narrative that's meant to like speak to simple-minded voters who don't understand cyber at all is the same level of thinking that is then applied when the conversation is being had, at least in open forums for European bureaucrats. And that means that you never have a serious discussion about what cyber can and can't do. Moreover, what cyber should be used for always versus what it shouldn't be, which is why when they start talking about like, oh, the gloves are coming off, we're going to use cyber offensive. I'm like, well, that's not even an accurate representation of what you normally would use cyber for. Normally, most cyber is about espionage, prepositioning, understanding, scoping operations and packages, and then making decisions about other shit that you're going to subsequently do, which is why you don't need to announce it because it's not an end in and of itself. It seldom accomplishes an end in and of itself. So, like, you should be cybering all the fucking time for all kinds of things that are mostly enablers for decision making and an understanding of your adversary and looking for opportunities to have effects. And those effects may be cyber effects, but they may be getting a group of people you've already positioned in Russia to go shoot a fucking general because you know where he is, because you know where he lives, because you know where his phone is, because you know all this shit because of cyber. But it's not like the cyber is meant to kill the general. So I hope you're already fucking doing it. So what exactly are we talking about differently here? That you're willing to now use cyber operations to do kinetic effects? Okay, so you're willing to have kinetic effects inside of Russia? Okay, well then, until you get your cyber shit together, how about you just fly a fucking plane and drop a bomb? Oh no. Oh, you won't do that because those are not the kind of kinetic effects we're willing to do. So then what are you going to do with the cyber that's different than with a jet or a missile?
Well, what are
That,
they doing with the cyber that's different from a jet and a missile? Is these hybrid type of disruptive type things? A train line
but
gets.
But Ryan, that's them being willing to have kinetic effects in other countries. And half of the time, those are Russian operatives walking in there and shooting someone or blowing something up or doing something physical. And we are saying, sorry, the Europeans are still in this kind of like bullshitty stage of like, well, we're not really in the war. We're not really willing to do these things inside of Russian territory. And I say, if you're still locked in that like bullshit fantasy that you're not at war, a war just seems to be steadily steamrolling your way, and you're just going to wait until it shows up, then what are we pretending that you're going to do with the cybers here?
Costin, are you squinting and leaning forward on purpose?
You guys jumped like very quickly. Juan said embassy parties. Can we go back to that? What is an embassy party? What happens?
Let me answer. An embassy party is the next place you go to the night after the opera.
I'm sorry.
The bougie life is real.
We found out Kostin sings opera today, and what we're gonna focus on is my like social life. I've known this man for what, like 12 years now. Never has he sang any kind of opera for any of us.
Wait a second, weren't you the first one who went to an opera? Like, I
went
remember.
to a ballet.
A ballet.
I was going to ballet.
Sorry. Embassy parties are things that happen after you leave the ballet.
Wow.
Man,
Mr. Bougie over here.
All I'm saying,
I'm just asking what embassy?
Oh no, that's the one thing I won't say. But like, no, because I mean they're kind enough to invite you, and the last thing I want to do is put them on the spot. Yeah, of course. You don't go to an embassy
party. They invite you, not me.
Well,
Costin, you and I don't get invited anywhere, bro.
To embassy parties, no.
Juanito is the representative.
We're missing. Yeah, I'm there repping the podcast. I show up with like a banner and a little pin,
Once all these legal frameworks are set up, are we expecting to see hybrid activities in adversary territory? Isn't that the expectation? It's not going to be a kinetic attack like Juanito says. There's just too much surrounding now. What do we expect to see? I don't know. Put a bow on this conversation from Europe, Costin.
Man,
what does Romania have? Do you guys have enough?
I'm still recovering from the embassy parties.
Does Romania have a policy around offensive cyber?
Well, Romania probably still doesn't have a policy when it comes to drone incursions, to shooting them down. Like the legal framework is still probably not entirely clear, but I heard that now there is permission, like the fighter pilots, they do have permission to shoot down drones. But like in terms of cyber, I think things are very, very unclear. But in general, Romanians like it when things are unclear. Why? Because when things are unclear, you can find solutions around it. When things are clear and very, in the letter of law, then you cannot just, yeah. But if things are flexible and, it's unclear. Is it allowed? Is not allowed? If you're a state institution, maybe you have powers. Your powers include that and that, which doesn't specifically exclude cyber. Then you can do it, no problem. Now, I don't know. I think one of the biggest issues when it comes to this hybrid Russia war that is happening at the moment and hitting Europe, I think the biggest issue is the one of deconfliction, the one that we keep discussing over and over for decades when it comes to advanced APT operations. Because let's say that at the same time, Netherlands and Romania decide to hit something like some kind of a troll farm, and they end up breaking each other out of that troll farm. And the troll farm, they just take the hard drives and they go to the best forensics company in Moscow. And then they publish like the full report exposing both the Dutch and the Romanians, and things are bad. So that's why I think deconfliction is the number one issue. And that's why I think that everyone is kind of passively watching things because they're afraid they might somehow do something that others might be unhappy with. So far, what we have seen is that the Dutch are, yes, super active. Remember the spying on the APT 29 office building lobby that has been happening years ago, and also these NSA operations against the troll farms in St. Petersburg. So those are active for sure, and we know also from the Snowden documents they were cooperating on different topics like exploitation and forum access and water holes and things like that. Now, how many of the other countries in Europe have joined? I think probably not a lot. And I think the biggest risk is they could be like targeting something at the same time. And you know that with such sensitive operations, deconfliction is very hard. I can see it happen within the Five Eyes or the 11 Eyes or the extended 14 Eyes. But I don't know if that would be, let's say, available for the smaller countries like Romania that typically concern themselves with other things such as trap music or football or shawarma or
What is
I don't
trap
know,
music? Does he really know
plum
what trap
wine.
music
Yeah,
is?
now he does. You let him know about Bad Bunny last time, and
Like
he
I had
did
no
his
idea
research.
what a bed bunny was. I thought that you guys were talking about a mascot or something. Honest to God, I had no idea. But I documented
He's telling the
myself.
truth.
I know it's a
And,
singer and also some kind of MMA fighter and
WWE wrestler. He's a
whatever, some kind
WWE.
of what is that? Now what? Educate us.
wrestling, the
New
wrestling.
homework.
Is a
New
fake
homework.
wrestling? Is that fake
Yeah.
or real? It's fake,
It's all
right? It's all
fake.
that fake. Like with the guy, like with the meme with the guy on the chair, like that's that one, correct?
Yeah.
This we just
Bad
gotta.
Bunny.
I am moving on because we're not gonna have any Bad Bunny slander in this chat.
That's fair.
Slander.
We can't survive that. No one can survive that.
Name one song by Bad Bunny.
Our friends at Reuters, Raphael.
Pass it.
I'm not encouraging any sort of Bad Bunny slander.
Fair. We can't
Our
survive
friends
that.
Raphael and AJ from Reuters have an exclusive that dropped yesterday that makes the claim that Palo Alto networks diluted references to China in this most recent report that they published amid concerns about potential retaliation from Beijing. Juanito, I'm going to throw this at you first because you warned about this multiple episodes in previous shows that companies are deliberately not publishing or even not researching because of this China, and you tied it to their company doing business in China, making their devices in China, blah blah blah. In this case, they're talking about potential retaliation from Beijing. What do we learn here, and is this going to be like the state of play moving forward with other research houses?
This has been the state of play for a long time, for a bit, and that's why I've kept talking about it. I actually feel kind of bad for Palo in this situation, and that these folks did some good research, and the campaign report is really interesting. It talks about a shit ton of victims. There's all this really great research with IOCs, and it's a long report. They pre-brief people, they shared with other people in the community to help them enable stuff, and then presumably someone in the leadership or in the marketing team or in whatever or in legal says, yeah, but you can't say this one word. You can publish the whole thing, but you can't say China. And they go, yeah, okay, well, we'll push our shit. And then it just gets fucking clobbered to death over that one. And so my sentiment, my
Let me set the stage before you go.
Sorry, yeah.
Before you go, there was an earlier draft of the report that allegedly linked it to China, but the final public version described it more as a state-aligned group that operates out of Asia. So they cleaned the language up a little bit and pushed it out. Is that something you've ever been asked to do?
No. Well, I'm trying to think, right? I don't think I've ever. Of course, at some point...
Is it inappropriate to ask? I'm trying to get a sense of it. Is this even a story?
Well, I think it's inappropriate to ask in the sense of, I personally believe that, researchers need to have a certain level of autonomy. And if you want to position yourself as somebody with a reliable, trustworthy research capability, then playing editorial politics is a way to defeat the entire point of publishing something, right? If every time we got a paper out of like, I don't know, the team that does quantum research at Google, and they fucking omitted things in there because they think it's going to upset a trade partner or something like that, maybe that does happen, but it certainly doesn't ring of science, right? It doesn't ring of objectivity. And I think that a lot of companies these days, they have these spineless fucking marketing departments with no experience. They have these overreaching lawyers, and they have this weak leadership that thinks that it's appropriate to just kind of like just cut around the edges and make it convenient and whatever. What they end up doing is they try to avoid a short-term problem and in return create a long-term problem, which is you're kind of taking away the value of what publishing this sort of research does for you, which is to make you look like an objective partner, like somebody reliable, like you're trustworthy, like you're on top of things, like you know things that other people don't know. And like that's the whole point of investing into R&D and research and public research. And I resent that, and I've been complaining about it for years openly, because I see it as a kind of vicious, self-reinforcing cycle that has really cratered threat intelligence as an industry. Because, and I know I've said this before, but like if Microsoft invests a fuck ton of money into a threat intel team, and it's an expensive capability, and part of what that capability provides is the legitimacy, the wherewithal, the brand recognition, the trust from customers, the positive regard from governments and IC partners and everything, because you go, holy shit, look at what Mystic does and what would we do without Mystic? And thank God that Microsoft is willing to pay money to keep this thing and give them data and enable them to publish and blah, 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 blah. And then some asshole shows up and says, well, actually, do we really want to deal with the optics of this? And why are we doing, like, maybe don't publish and don't say this and remove that part. And actually, instead of 10 blogs, how about 2? And out of those 2, how about no IOCs? And out of this, like, just remove that. And actually, why are any of our researchers tweeting? And why are these people involved in any government forums? And why are they talking to IC directly without any lawyers? And why? And like, you just keep cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting away. And then you have the gall 6 months later to be like, why are we spending all this money on these fucking researchers? They don't provide any value. They don't do anything. Why are we spending like millions of dollars on a research team and giving them data and dealing with this and that and the other when they don't seem to give us anything back as a company? And that's a situation that has repeated itself at a bunch of places out here. And I resent the absolute shit out of it. So, I feel bad for Palo Alto getting this kind of reception.
Do you think this is going to be standard operating procedure for Palo Alto moving forward, in that it'll be a state-aligned group that operates out of what, Eastern Europe?
I can't speak for Palo, but look, this is something like, again, I feel bad that people are kind of like, Palo's become the example openly because it was such a, like, the switcheroo was so, evident. But we've been having the same conversation about Cisco, and there's been like things have like kind of leaned forward and then leaned back and then leaned forward. We've had similar conversations in the past about Microsoft. We've had similar conversations about a lot of people. And so Palo might be like today's like whipping boy, but this is a bigger issue than that. And I don't want to talk about, is this going to become standard operating procedure? It seems to have already become that for a lot of places.
Costin, is this different to when you were managing Great in the early days? We never did attribution. That was one of the things. Kaspersky doesn't do attribution, but we'll say Russian speaking, Chinese speaking. How is this any different by saying, it's a group out of Asia, and you make the connection, versus Red Dragon is Russian speaking, but we don't do attribution?
Well, I guess
what was that policy about?
So I think it's no different from I don't know, instead of saying Chinese hackers, saying green panda, or like just using animals, or like using all sorts of names like
Clues, yeah.
I don't know, red void, like colors or other things, in order to avoid the word China. So this is not necessarily something new, avoiding the word China in a blog. What I was thinking here is that probably what matters to this story, because it didn't matter in the past, there might be two or three things. One is they kind of say that they were fearing retaliation. Like, what could retaliation look like? And I can tell you what I heard in the past, like what people were fearing in the past. I heard that um, if stories were about to be published naming China directly, then China would have no other choice than blocking that company's website in the Great Firewall of China. So that means nobody in China would be able to access that website. They would be able to get updates, they would be able to get products or information, or they would be able to get support. So that would be like the first stage, blocking the website which directly names or blames China for a hack. So I heard that there were such kind of threats in the past. What could follow from blocking the website and fearing retaliation is just to ban the vendor. Remember, like last episodes, we were talking about China advising not to buy from what was it, Israeli vendors and American vendors.
Mm-hmm.
They were already kind of advising not to buy that thing. So
I think Reuters mentioned this in this report that the language
mhm.
was softened following the news that Chinese had banned this software from these
Possible.
US and Israeli companies.
Possible. And I think, yeah, the other issue here could be like the website can simply be just blocked in the Great Firewall to deal with it. Like that would be the first levels, and then just removing it from the market. I don't know how big the Palo Alto market is in China, like how popular these things are in China, and if they're like really worried about that. But like, to me, honestly, the idea of attribution, it never sounded like a very wise thing that you want to hype or advertise. I do know that it was like very important back in the days that you have some kind of naming and blaming in your publication. If you don't have that, nobody will cover it. Like the New York Times, they just don't care. They're not going to cover your blog if you don't make some kind of extraordinary claims blaming China or Russia or whoever for it. If you just say things like a hacking group from Asia, there's we're not going to deal with it. So in a way, I understand these decisions. And to me, like I said, the idea of open attribution, it never sounded like a very wise idea against any country, unless you want to become part of the geopolitical game. If you're saying like, yeah, it's fine to do it against Russia and China, but we're not going to do it against allied nations again, it means you're part of some game. If you're doing it only against one country but not the others, again, there's like some kind of a bias. So what is left there? Like, if, to be honest, like what is the most valuable thing in such stories are the technical details, the analysis, the IOCs, the samples that you talk about, the techniques. All of that is the most valuable. Attribution, like everybody will figure out what it is. You don't have to say China. It's absolutely fine if you say green panda or red void or whatever. But there's also another situation, by super important situation, which I know that the Chinese get very, very upset when they spot anything like that, which is companies or people trying to blame or expose them for domestic operations, be it CT or like anti-extremist operations, or like, let's say they're targeting of Hong Kong, or they're targeting of things like Falun Gong or any other like religious groups. They get super, super upset, and they get the most upset when companies publish about their counterterrorism operations. This is when they get the most upset. Now, I was like really curious if this story has any kind of city angles, and it seems to me that maybe not. So it's not necessarily a domestic spy operation, and it's not like some kind of a city operation. which wouldn't explain like why they would get so upset with it. But nevertheless, there might be something in this story that we are missing, which made China upset, and it's quite possible. Again, not entirely
Well, do we know if
out
China
of
was upset?
out.
Or
This is what I mean. It's not entirely impossible that actually China received an advanced copy of this research one way or the other, and they reached out and they said, you better not publish that or say China or else, which is, like I said, this has happened in the past according to my information, and I wonder if that also happened in this story.
I mean, you hope it
it's
did, because what I think is a more concerning situation is all of these
self-censorship for no
people
reason. Yeah.
self-censoring because they think the Chinese are going to whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
frankly, there are situations where the Chinese have overreacted or made it clear they were upset about something. Then there's a lot of situations where the Chinese did not give a fuck. And like there are way more situations where the Chinese do not give a flying fuck what we're saying, what we're reporting. You could have proof, you could have emails, you could have contracts, you could have videos of the guy literally doing the tasking and the other person literally pushing the button, and they would just look at you and be like, you guys should really stop lying about what China does in other parts of the country, the world. Anyways, be better partners. And like, that's it. Like, they're just kind of like, yep, don't give a shit. Teflon Don China like approach to
I
this
think
shit.
I think it's pretty unfortunate that this is why we're talking about our report when the actual work was so significant, and it was an amazing report. It's this Unit 42 on TGR STA 1030. I don't know about this naming convention, but it's the state-aligned group. And as Costin mentioned, targets are primarily government ministries and departments internationally, 5 national level law enforcement, border control entities, ministries of finance and various government ministries, departments globally that align with economic, trade, natural resources, and diplomacy. It's an amazing, incredible report with IOCs that they shared and so on. And the fact that one word or this kind of political language, I don't want that to take away from the quality of the work and that came out to the folks at
All. And there's another, by the way, another angle that I think might be relevant here. This is one of those things that is big in the sense that Palo Alto even says they compromise government critical infrastructure organizations across 37 countries. So it's massive. Whenever we in the old days we found something like this, we would actually reach out to those 37 countries and share a copy of the report in advance and say, hey, we think that you have victims in your country. Here's a list of infected IP addresses. I don't know, here's based on our sinkholing or partnership with another group sinkholing the infrastructure, we think that these entities are infected. And what may happen when you notify 37 countries about something like this and you send them an advance copy of the report and your advance copy says China hacked you? You would expect 37 countries through their Ministry of Foreign Affairs to write an email to China and say, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck, China? You hacked us. And they get 37 emails on the same day. And then they get upset and they write back to Palo Alto and they say, what the fuck, Palo Alto? Like, what are you doing here? Like, you're getting 37 countries to shout at us and to accuse us? Like, what's going on? So this is like one of those like full circle arrows that can be happening. And I think that, yeah, that's one of the possibilities we need to keep in mind.
I want to mention the other story on this list here that we're getting through it is the Singapore government actually published a report on its largest multi-agency cyber operation to counter threats from an APT, and they mentioned UNC 3886 conducting targeted campaign against all 4 major Singapore telcos, M1, Simba, Singtel, StarHub, and does not contain the word China either. So this is not just Palo Alto. The Singapore government is, we know who UNC 3886 is. Costin, anything new to learn in this Singapore telco hack? Is this another typhoon? Is it a typhoon? People in a different country? What is this?
What is this? It's a good question. When I saw the report, by the way, and I pinged even our good friend Vitali, who lives in Singapore. Shout outs to Vitaly, and I asked if he has seen this report and if he knows anything. And unfortunately, this CSA, which is maybe a bit similar to CISA from the United States, they put out this press release without any kind of technical IOCs. Maybe they share them privately, but I haven't seen any myself. One thing I can tell you for sure, they were talking about ANC 3886 for some time. Last year, when I was at Black Hat Asia, there were talks from Singapore government that were like referencing ANC 3886 perhaps indirectly or even directly. So they were clearly very worried about this particular threat actor. Now, I think it would have been better if they included IOCs which are different from the Google reports, which I think are the reference reports we have on these threat actors. They published, like I think in the series, several reports which dealt with the all the tools, like the techniques that these guys are using, their virtualization tool set, their rootkits, all those things, which are fascinating in my opinion. And I think also it's quite interesting that our friend Will Bushido Token on X, he published his own analysis of the infrastructure related to ANC 3886 using the Team Camry toolset. Team Camry, they have this amazing net flow visibility, which allows them to track interesting things. And Will found like a bunch of additional GobRat, Tiny Shell infrastructure in Singapore, which theoretically could be related to all these intrusions. I think, yeah, this is a developing story. We're going to hear more of ANC 3886 because this is it's a gift that keeps on giving. There'll be for sure more stuff coming out from ANC 3886.
Is it a safe assumption that all these old school telcos running on old backbone technologies are all owned? I mean, when we look at the typhoon reporting here in the US, Singapore acknowledging this, Belgacom, all of these stories over the years, it just feels like these places are just hubs for malicious activity happening there.
Well, the thing is, so there are like some, we work with some telcos and trying to help them because they were seeing the stories. And if you read the stories, you saw that like this telco was owned for like that many years. This telco was owned by 3 different threat actors, and this telco had 5 different threat actors, or this telco started doing for incident response for some Iranian group, and they found like something else, which is
Magnet
not
of all
Iranian.
threats, yeah.
So they're magnets, but at the same time, there are some boring telcos which have nothing of interest, and like no matter how much you dig in those boring telcos, you don't find anything. Now, I would expect that Singapore, being what it is, like the jewel of Asia, they would attract a lot of interest. And let's keep in mind what it means to target all these telcos. It means a lot of visibility and potential for fine-grained targeting of mobile phone users, of their communications, SMSs, maybe even hijacking their accounts, be it Telegram, WhatsApp accounts, through SMS interception, like all these systems which are insecure and rely on SMS-based registration. They can be hijacked through telcos attacks. And all of that becomes possible when you have persistence and you are very deeply intertwined into their infrastructure, which I think is the reason why this group is so successful and why it's going specifically after telco networks. The other thing is that they do have a lot of equipment, including their infrastructure running things which unfortunately don't support like direct monitoring through EDR agents. You can't take Sentinel-1 and run it on this Fortinet appliance, like here we are with Fortinet again, or this Ivanti appliance or whatever. So unfortunately, they have a lot of things in there, like in some cases, even very old Sun OS or Solaris systems, or God forbid, the IBM AX systems running all databases with no protection. And the moment that you get access to them through some user password and you deploy your tool set, you can happily live there for decades before you get kicked out with some new hardware upgrade.
No IOX. No
No IOS
technical
from the
details.
government.
Does Singapore have a cert that is active?
Well, the CSA is, I think,
This
it's a
CSA
pretty.
covers this, yeah.
The Cybersecurity Authority is a pretty mature organization, and I would say they have very, very skilled analysts. But I guess that, remember what CISA used to be a couple of years ago when they were just doing the first steps, right? Back in the days of crabs, like they were just doing small steps, trying to come out into the world, publish something, no IOX, and then you learn, and then you include IOX, no YARA rules, include YARA rules, but are bad. You learn and you improve the YARA rules, they still don't have, I don't know, header check. You improve, they get better. So it probably takes time before they achieve the same level of maturity in terms of publishing. But at least I think there are things moving. But yeah, we can always hope for best.
I think that's about covers it for the stuff that we have. We're 2 hours and 15 minutes in. There's a Fortinet patch, CV 2026-22153. Why is this one significant costing? I see a Fortinet patch and it's just like...
Yeah, it's like another ice cream flavor, right? That's being made available for sale.
It is, but then I look at the same Singapore report there, and they're talking about 0 days bypassing primitive firewalls, and I'm like, this war brought to you by Fortinet and Ivanti, and it's just there's a new Fortinet thing here, CVSS 7.5, improper access control, and it's just like the wheel just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning.
Yeah,
it's terrible, isn't it?
I think I saw, by the way, there was an FBI advisory today, which I thought was quite interesting. They were talking about the fact that, and it's interesting how they were showcasing the problem. They said attackers constantly target out of life or end of life devices that do no longer receive patches. So they were kind of emphasizing that Chinese APTs, by the way, they were like specifically naming Chinese APTs, including Volt Typhoon. They are targeting end-of-life devices, kind of suggesting that you guys should get your things in order. You need to get your shit straight. Get rid of that 15 years old device and replace it with something new. Who's gonna pay for it? Not us, obviously, but you're gonna have to pay for it. But it seemed like the entire like structure and the way they were conveying the message was, it's your fault, guys, that you're using end-of-life devices and you get hacked.
Well,
it's definitely
though, right?
not the vendors. Good question. Good question. But like everything is arguable here. And did anyone tell me that when I bought this device that I can only use it for 5 years? Or when those 5 years passed, did anyone offer me a replacement for a, like, I don't know, whatever good price? Or even better, did I somehow, let's say, when I bought the device, was I like offered the option to pay this much for 5 years or pay this much for 15 years? I mean, everything begins with choice, and it feels there's no choice with these devices, and the FBI blames you for running these devices after the end of life.
And I should continue to support it for how long? Forever? I mean, like, what is the gray? I hate to be on this side of the fence, but what is the area? What is the balancing point between how long I should continue to support something that I don't even ship anymore?
I tell you one thing. I like one idea that comes from the hard drive world, which is the smart monitoring of hard drives. So hard drives have this smart SMART features which allow them to kind of predict when the hard drive is going to fail. So the hard drive, one day it will crash. And this allows you to predict the day when it will crash, and then it starts warning you in advance, like, hey, this hard drive is going to fail, you better replace it. So I like the idea that these devices would have some kind of mechanism. So they start telling you like 1 or 2 years in advance, hey, in 2027, this device is going to crash. Like it not is gonna like be end of life
So maybe
and
they
no
should
longer.
make it crash then.
It's gonna crash, like physically be dead. Like this device has some kind of a lifetime, like a car, and this car like is gonna die, like it's not gonna work. So you better find a solution, start looking for an alternative. Here are your options. Buy a new one, like get trade this in and get a discounted one, subscribe to a plan where we ship you a new device every year, or sign up for extended updates which allow you another
40
5
care.
years. No, this is 40/40 care.
40.
Like 40/40 care.
I mean, there has to be some balance to it. I don't know. We have a new CISA 2025.
When do you upgrade your Tesla, Ryan?
Every time there's a new patch shipped.
No. I
But
mean,
if they
like
send- if
you.
they
Let's
send-
say you have you bought a Tesla, right? And you know the battery is gonna like get worse and worse. So you're like starting already with the idea. I need to get rid
Well,
of
let's
this
take this,
Tesla in
forget the
5
Tesla,
years.
the iPhone. I change iPhones when the battery starts to degrade. So Apple actually
you changed the whole iPhone. Wow.
Apple starts to
You
degrade the
wait for the
battery after
battery
a
to
while.
degrade?
Yes,
You don't
I am one of
replace
those
the
that don't.
battery?
No, I don't
The
upgrade
battery.
every year like this guy over here.
I just replaced the
iPhones
battery in my
last
iPhone.
for 12 months.
12
That's
months.
it. That's it.
My iPhone 14 lasted for like 3+ years. You replace
Yeah,
the
the
battery.
difference is though, right, that those end-of-life devices continue to work. They're providing internet access for a doctor's office forever. And then we're like, why am I changing something that continues to work? In the case of the iPhone and in some of the other things you're describing is that it stops working, it starts to break, it starts to get damaged. Maybe they should. Maybe these end-of-life devices need to be poked to stop working. I don't know.
Some like LED red, like it starts blinking, like, hey, I'm dying here, man. Replace
Well,
me.
then these companies would have to admit that they're doing this. I think
Right.
part of the situation here is, right, like you're kind of telling people that they have some level of autonomy with the investment that they've made,
And they don't.
but they don't, and you're also not willing to allow them to have some other mechanism, right? Like if you've end of life this device, why can't I maintain it myself? Like if you've end of life this device, like where are the third party support companies that are going
If
to
you
provide
can't be
me
bothered
different
to
kind
buy
of
another
support?
one for $100, are you going to be supporting it with firmware updates yourself? Come on.
But like, are we talking about $100 devices? I thought we were talking about, enterprise
10K.
grade, if 10K, 15K devices.
I'm talking about like these Soho home routers thing. That's what I'm
nobody
talking.
gives. That's trash. That shit's trash. But at the
Yeah,
same
but that
time,
shit is what's causing a lot of problems as well in these orb networks and so on.
okay,
It's like-
Ryan. So let's talk about this, right? These fucking, we're talking about like the Europeans suddenly taking on offensive cyber. You know what would be like? Life changing right now for the quality and health of the internet? If somebody went out and just bricked all of these Soho cameras and Soho routers that are vulnerable, and you can because they're vulnerable. So this, you want to do some cool shit? Okay, well, the Chinese are
This is
abusing.
not cool shit. Don't encourage people to do like go breaking people's routers when
Why?
it's keeping.
Why, Ryan? It's
Because
literally
because there's a hospital somewhere where there's blinking lights attached to
the
that thing.
hospital. There's a hospital with a Soho router somewhere. Like
There
get the
is.
fuck-
I'm telling you.
enough. Who cares? It's being used by the Chinese to direct a bunch of operations into the country that are causing all kinds of other damage, which also means that if the Chinese ever wanted to brick them, they can. So, this is
Extreme, a little too extreme.
We're being held at risk by these things, and we pretend that it's out of like an abundance of caution for these people. It's like, no, but nobody's willing to just make some tough choices.
Don't
Grow a
encourage people
pair.
to be doing tough choices.
Grow a pair and go brick some shit.
I think our only salvation is our good friend Mr. Silas.
There we
Think
go.
Silas is gonna brick all these devices?
Shout out
I
to
said
Mr.
salvation.
Silas.
I don't know. Shout outs to Silas, and we're all
Always, man.
rooting and hoping for Malshare to come back. Like
Oh,
living without Malshare is a pain.
well, that's what you get. unreliable hosting. It's yeah. Anyways.
Austin, close the show with some shout outs. We're 2.5 hours in. And we're by the way, did you guys see people on Reddit describing the podcast as a lot of long rambling? Like they're rambling
Really?
us.
We're rambling.
2 hours and 20 minutes of rambling.
Reddit or what was it?
It was on Reddit. Someone was describing the three-body problem. Oh, these guys go deep into the topics, but they're always rambling.
Rude.
All three
fucking
of them
rude.
or only one?
Stop the rambling and give me some shout-outs. Let's close the show.
Or jokes?
No, yeah.
No
Give
jokes.
us a joke.
What do you have?
final
Any
joke.
plugs?
I promise to give you the joke with the Romanian Shepherd. You're not going to escape the joke.
Yeah, hit me.
Because I think it's relevant to what kind of things some people are posting on X. So the story goes that like the American tourist comes to Romania and goes like deep into the mountains. You know, there's shepherds, there's sheep, like they're making cheese, all these kind of things. And typically the shepherd they have a lot of time to just think about the universe, and this is how some of the most impressive Romanian literary works have been created, and they talk about shepherds doing very wise things. So basically the Indians, they have the gurus and like all these sages, and we have the shepherds. So the American tourist goes into the mountains and he eventually finds a shepherd. He goes to the shepherd and he says, "Shepherd, what are you doing? Are you sitting and thinking about the mysteries of the universe?" And the shepherd says, "I'm just sitting, dude." So sometimes people are just sitting, not necessarily thinking about the mysteries of the universe.
Right, it's face.
I can't with these fucking jokes. I can't.
It's true.
It's a good one. The rabbi and his son was better.
The rabbi, some asshole in a
working on it.
Ferrari. Yeah.
Juanito, close the show with some shout outs. You always got we got a bunch of people doing important things.
I mean, shout out to the researchers at Palo Alto. Amazing work. Sorry for like a bad reception. Shit happens. It's happened to all of us at some point, and it's always it always
Stop
stings
leaking
a little
this
bit.
shit to AJ.
Nah, come on. No. Look. What I feel bad about in that situation is like that is a story that I want written.
Oh, it was great reporting as well. I was joking.
I feel bad for the Palo researchers who just did an amazing job at what they're supposed to be doing, and then kind of got shafted in the politics that are also valid politics to criticize. But shout out to those guys, amazing, keep up the amazing work, Pete and everybody else in the team, Mike Harbison, like they've got some great folks. Once again, reminders about conferences, right? Reverse is coming. Echo Party Miami's coming. PivotCon CFP has closed and registration's closed. So you either got in or you didn't. And hope to see you folks there. And then LabsCon, we're getting our sponsors buttoned up, so this is a great time to get some of that support in. We obviously greatly appreciate it, and this one has to be a particularly special LabsCon, so would definitely love to have folks involved. And then I think the true shout out is, you shouted out Silas Cutler already, but let's take a minute to appreciate just how much work Silas has done for actual community projects and actual visibility. Like Malshare alone, which is what a lot of people depend on for access to malware samples, is just a thing that Silas has created and maintained of the goodness of his own fucking heart.
For more than a decade.
For a long time. And he's got way more projects that we're all kind of mourning right now because of, some of the not so pro-social actions of certain people who claim to care about community endeavors, but then don't. But in any case, shout out to the folks that really do contribute out here and who are willing to do this shit. Silas has a family and a real job and a bunch of other shit to do, and the fact that he spends his time doing this stuff for everybody else is commendable. And we'd be in a much better place if folks like that had all the hosting in the world and had all the support in the world. And for all the companies that would like to pretend that they're, well, let me put this differently. for the companies that are actually interested in supporting community endeavors, there's one right there that could use a lot of support. So I hope to see you folks kind of coming out to support Silas and coming out to support the community things that actually make a difference. And you know, God bless all of you guys moving forward there.
I just want to give a quick shout out to, well said, by the way, well said, Juanito, on companies looking to prove their mettle in terms of community support. There's a lot of activities, conferences, smaller things, projects looking for help. I just want to give a shout out quickly to the guys at NATO Thoughts. Eugenio Benincasa and May Danowski had a pretty fascinating report out this week on the Tianfu Cup, the return of China's Tianfu Cup in some secrecy being run by the US government. Maybe we'll get to it in the next show. I thought it was a really, really good report. That's a kind of like deep research, foreign language thing that I really, really like. I wanted to shout out those guys. As usual, thanks to our sponsors, Harun Mir and the folks at Thinkst for continuing to sponsor the show, the folks at ThreatLocker, the folks at Material Security who support this show. Shout out to those guys. And I think that's our show for this week, guys. We'll catch you next week.
And to all of you going to embassy parties, party on.
Ballet, opera, embassy parties. That's the order. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Ciao.